I never thought a simple family disagreement would spiral into something so dramatic. My name is Robert, and I've always tried to keep peace in my family, believing that understanding and patience could smooth over most conflicts. I've always been the kind of person who values harmony, who believes that family is the most important thing, and that with enough love and compromise, we can get through anything. But sometimes even the best intentions can lead to chaos, and that's exactly what happened in my case. It all started with what seemed like a small issue me soon-in-law. Mark decided to throw my belongings into the garage to make room for his father. First, I didn't think much of it. I understood that his father needed a place to stay, and I was willing to be flexible. After all, family means supporting each other, right? The way Mark went about it, the way he handled my things was careless and disrespectful. It wasn't just about moving boxes or furniture. It was about how he disregarded my presence and my rights in my own home. When I walked into the garage and saw my belongings piled up haphazardly, covered in dust and exposed to the elements, I felt a wave of shock and hurt wash over me. These weren't just things. They were memories, pieces of my life that held sentimental value. Some items had been passed down through generations. Others were gifts from loved ones, and many were simply part of the life I had built. Seeing them treated like trash was a blow I wasn't prepared for. I confronted Mark about it, hoping to resolve the situation calmly. I explained how important those things were to me and asked him to be more considerate. But Mark brushed me off, saying it was just temporary and that his father needed the space more than I did. His tone was dismissive, and his attitude made it clear that he didn't see my feelings as a priority. That moment was when I realized this wasn't just about space. It was about respect, or rather the lack of it. The tension in the house grew thick after that. Lisa, my daughter, was caught in the middle, trying to mediate between her husband and her father. She loved us both and wanted peace, but the strain was evident. Mark's father, who had moved in, seemed unaware of the turmoil his presence was causing. The house, once a place of comfort and laughter, felt suffocating and tense. Every interaction was laced with unspoken resentment, and I found myself retreating more and more, feeling like a guest in my own home. I tried to keep my emotions in, reminding myself that family is about compromise, but inside I was boiling. The garage, cluttered and dusty, became a symbol of how my place in the family was being diminished. I felt invisible, disregarded, and disrespected. It wasn't just about the physical space. It was about the boundaries that had been crossed. Without my consent, one evening, as I was trying to organize some of my things in the garage, Mark came out and started moving boxes around. I watched as he carelessly shifted a fragile box, and before I could say anything, it slipped and crashed to the ground. The sound of breaking glass echoed through the garage, and my heart sank. Inside that box was a priceless heirloom, a delicate vase that had belonged to my late mother. It was irreplaceable, a tangible connection to my family's history. Mark's face went pale. The instant regret was written all over him. He looked at me, eyes wide with shock and guilt, and for the first time I saw a crack in his tough exterior. He realized that his actions had consequences far beyond just making room for his father. That broken vase was more than just an object. It was a symbol of respect, love, and family legacy. And now it was shattered. That moment was a turning point. Mark apologized sincerely, not just for the broken heirloom, but for how he had treated me. It was a heartfelt apology, one that I hadn't expected but deeply appreciated. We sat down as a family and had a long, honest conversation about respect, boundaries, and what it means to live together as a family. Lisa stood by me, and even her father-in-law expressed remorse for the disruption he had caused. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. We agreed on new rules and boundaries to ensure everyone felt valued and respected. It was a process of rebuilding, trust brick by brick. Slowly, the tension eased, and the house began to feel like home again. The garage was cleaned out, my belongings were carefully stored, and the broken vase was replaced with a new symbol of our commitment to each other. Reminder, family is about more than just living under the same roof. This experience taught us all valuable lessons. I learned that respect isn't just about words, it's about actions and consideration for others. Mark learned that family isn't just about convenience, but about honoring the people who came before us, Lisa realized. The importance of standing up for her parents while supporting her husband. And we all understood that living together requires communication, compromise, and empathy. Sometimes it takes a broken heirloom and a garage full of boxes to remind us what truly matters. Not the things we own or the space we occupy, but the love and respect we show each other every day. Family is a delicate balance, and it takes effort from everyone to keep it strong. If you've ever faced family conflicts like this, you're not alone. Boundaries can be tricky, but respect and communication can heal even the deepest wounds. I hope our story encourages you to speak up, listen, and find common ground with your loved ones. Please share your own family stories in the comments below. Experiences might help someone else. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more true stories about family, love, and resilience. Our family has always been close-knit, the kind of family where gatherings were filled with laughter, shared stories, and a deep sense of belonging. We celebrated birthdays, holidays, and milestones together, always making time for one another. Despite the busy pace of life, but like any family, we weren't without our tensions. Differences in opinions, personalities, and life choices sometimes caused friction, but we always managed to work through them with patience and understanding. I believed that as long as we communicated openly and respected each other, we could. Weather any storm, my daughter Lisa was the heart of our family. She was kind, intelligent, and fiercely loyal to those she loved. When she met Mark, I was hopeful. Mark was charming, respectful, and seemed genuinely devoted to Lisa. From the moment he entered our lives, we welcomed him with open arms. He fit in well, shared our values, and made Lisa happy. For the first few years of their marriage, everything seemed perfect. They built a life together filled with love and promise, and I was proud to see my daughter thriving. However, as time passed, subtle changes began to emerge. Mark's demeanor shifted in ways that were hard to pinpoint at first. He became more controlling, less willing to listen, and increasingly dismissive of my opinions. Lisa, caught between her husband and her family, often seemed stressed and conflicted. I tried to give them space, believing that every marriage has its ups and downs, and that they would find their balance again. The real turning point came when Mark's father, who had been living in another state, suddenly needed a place to stay. His health was declining, and he had no one else to turn to. Mark insisted that his dad move in with them, arguing that it was the right thing to do as a family. Asa was hesitant but agreed, trusting Mark's judgment. I wanted to be supportive, understanding that family obligations can be complicated, and that sometimes sacrifices must be made. But the reality of having an additional person in their already modest home quickly became apparent. The house was already crowded with Lisa and Mark's 2 children, their busy schedules, and the daily chaos that comes with raising a family. Adding Mark's father to the mix created new challenges. Became tight, privacy was compromised, and the dynamics shifted in ways none of us anticipated. Tensions started to rise almost immediately. Mark's father was not the easiest person to live with. He was stubborn, demanding, and often critical of Lisa and Mark's parenting and household management. His presence created an undercurrent of stress that permeated the home. Arguments became more frequent, and the once warm atmosphere grew cold and strained. Lisa confided in me about her struggles, her exhaustion, and her feelings of being overwhelmed. I tried to offer advice and support, but I could see the toll it was taking on her. Meanwhile, Mark seemed to grow more distant from his family, focusing his attention on his father and the new responsibilities that came with caring for him. He became less communicative with Lisa and more rigid in his decisions. I sensed a growing divide between them, and it worried me deeply. Family is supposed to be a source of strength and comfort, but now it felt like a battleground. Amidst all this turmoil, I found myself increasingly marginalized. Mark's decisions began to exclude me, and my role as Lisa's father in a family elder was diminished. The house, which had always been a place of refuge for me, started to feel foreign. I was no longer just a visitor. I was becoming an outsider in my own family. The situation reached a boiling point when Mark decided to clear out space in the living room to accommodate his father. Without consulting me, he took it upon himself to move my belongings, boxes of personal items, furniture, and keepsakes, into the garage. It was a shock to see my things treated so carelessly, thrown into a cluttered, dusty space as if they were no longer valued. This wasn't just about physical space. It was a symbolic act that made me feel disrespected and disregarded. I never imagined that my own belongings would become a battleground. What hurt the most was not the inconvenience, but the message it sent that my presence and my history in that home were no longer important. It was a painful realization that the family I had helped build was changing in ways I couldn't control. Despite the hurt and frustration, I tried to approach the situation with calm and reason. I spoke to Mark, expressing my feelings and asking for respect and consideration. But my words were met with defensiveness and dismissal. Mark insisted that his father's needs came first, and that the arrangement was temporary. He didn't seem to understand how deeply his actions affected me. Lisa was caught in the middle, torn between her husband and her father. She loved us both and wanted peace, but the strain was evident. Our family dinners became tense affairs, filled with awkward silences and unspoken resentments. The warmth that once defined our gatherings was replaced by a fragile truce. As days turned into weeks, the situation didn't improve. The garage remained cluttered with my belongings, and the emotional distance between Mark and me grew. I felt isolated and powerless, struggling to find my place in a family that seemed to be slipping away. Looking back, I realized that this period was a test of patience and resilience. It forced me to confront difficult truths about family, respect, and boundaries. I learned that love alone is not always enough to keep a family together. Sometimes it takes courage to stand up for yourself and demand the respect you deserve. Through it all, I held on to hope that we could find a way back to the closeness we once shared. I believed that with honest communication and mutual understanding, our family could heal and grow stronger. But I also knew that change would require effort from everyone involved. This experience taught me the importance of setting clear boundaries and standing firm when those boundaries are crossed. It reminded me that respect is the foundation of any healthy relationship, and without it, even the strongest bonds can fracture. I also came to understand the complexities of blended family dynamics and the challenges that arise when new members join a household. It's not always easy to balance the needs and expectations of everyone involved, but it's essential to strive for fairness and empathy. Most importantly, I learned that family is not just about blood or proximity. It's about the quality of the relationships we nurture. It's about honoring each other's dignity and creating a home where everyone feels valued and safe. If you're facing similar challenges in your family, know that you're not alone. These situations are difficult, but with patience, communication, and respect, there is hope for resolution and healing. Don't be afraid to speak up for yourself and your place in the family. Your feelings matter, and your voice deserves to be heard as our story continues. I hope to share how we navigated the aftermath of this conflict, the steps we took to rebuild trust, and the lessons we learned along the way. Family is a journey, full of ups and downs, but it's a journey worth fighting for. Thank you for listening to our story. If it resonates with you, please share your own experiences in the comments. Together, we can support each other through the challenges and celebrate the victories that come with love and respect. One afternoon, I came home to a sight that stopped me in my tracks and filled me with a mix of shock, disbelief, and deep hurt. My belongings boxes filled with memories, pieces of furniture that had been part of my life for years and personal items that held sentimental value, were all thrown unceremoniously into the garage. The garage, a space I had always thought of as secondary, place for tools and old lawn equipment, had suddenly become a makeshift storage area for what used to be my things. The sight was jarring. Boxes were stacked haphazardly, some leaning precariously, others crushed under the weight of careless placement. Furniture was shoved into corners, scratched and dusty, as if it had been forgotten or discarded. Personal items, some fragile and irreplaceable, were were left exposed to the elements dust, moisture, and the occasional stray insect Mark had cleared out space in the living room to accommodate his father, who had recently moved in with them. I understood that his father needed a place to stay, and I was willing to be flexible and supportive. But what I wasn't prepared for was the way my belongings had been treated in the process. It felt like my presence in the house, my history, and my contributions were being erased, shoved aside to make room for someone else. The garage, once a place I rarely thought about, had become a symbol of how little regard was being shown for me. I stood there for a long moment, taking it all in, feeling a knot tighten in my stomach. This was my home too. I had lived here for years, built a life here, and shared countless memories within these walls. To see my things treated this way was more than just inconvenient. It was deeply disrespectful. It was as if my place in the family was being questioned, my value diminished. The physical displacement of my belongings mirrored the emotional displacement I was beginning to feel. When I finally gathered the courage to confront Mark, I tried to keep my voice calm, hoping to resolve the situation without escalating tensions. I told him how important those things were to me, not just as objects, but as pieces of my life and legacy. I explained how the careless way they had been handled hurt me, how it made me feel invisible in my own home. I asked him to consider my feelings and to find a better way to handle the situation, but Mark brushed me off. His response was dismissive, almost casual. He said it was just temporary, that his dad needed the space more than I did, and that I should understand the situation. His tone was firm, leaving little room for discussion or compromise. It was clear that he didn't see my concerns as valid or important. The way he spoke, the way he acted, felt like a slap in the face. It wasn't just about the physical space anymore. It was about respect, or the lack thereof. The garage itself was cluttered and dusty, far cry from the organized, cared-for space I had once known. My things were exposed to the elements cold. Drafts, humidity, and dirt. I worried about the damage this could cause, not just to the items themselves, but to the memories they represented. Some of those boxes contained photographs, letters, and keepsakes that could never be replaced. The thought of them being ruined because of someone else's disregard was unbearable. As days passed, the situation didn't improve. The garage remained a chaotic storage area, and my belongings stayed there, neglected and forgotten. I found myself avoiding the space, not wanting to see the mess or feel the sting of disrespect anew. But the emotional weight of the situation was always with me, a constant reminder that my place in the family was being challenged. This experience forced me to confront difficult questions about family, respect, and boundaries. How do you maintain your dignity when those closest to you seem to disregard it? How do you assert your rights in a home that is supposed to be shared and safe? I realized that this wasn't just about stuff. It was about how we treat each other, how we honor the people who came before us, how we navigate the complexities of blended families. I thought about the sacrifices I had made for my family. Over the years, the support I had given, the times I had put others' needs before my own. I wondered if those sacrifices were being taken for granted, if my role as a father and a family member was being diminished. The garage, with all its clutter and dust, became a metaphor for how I felt pushed aside, overlooked, and undervalued. Despite the hurt, I knew I had to find a way to address the situation constructively. I didn't want to create a rift in the family, but I also couldn't ignore how I felt. I began to think about how to communicate my feelings more clearly, how to set boundaries that would protect my dignity without causing unnecessary conflict. It was a delicate balance, one that required patience, empathy, and courage. I also reflected on Mark's perspective. He was trying to care for his father, to fulfill his responsibilities as a son. I understood that, and I respected it.
But responsibility
Doesn't give anyone the right to disregard others or trample over their feelings. Family is about mutual respect and consideration. It's about finding solutions that honor everyone's needs. The situation made me realize how important it is to have open and honest conversations in families, especially when new members join or circumstances change. It's easy for misunderstandings and resentments to build when communication breaks down. I wished we had talked more openly about the challenges we were facing, about how to share space and responsibilities without hurting each other. As I navigated this difficult time, I found support in unexpected places. Friends and relatives offered advice and encouragement, reminding me that I wasn't alone. I also sought guidance from counselors and family mediators, hoping to find tools to help us heal and rebuild. It was a humbling experience, but one that taught me the value of seeking help and being vulnerable. Over time, I began to see small changes. Mark started to acknowledge my feelings more, to include me in decisions, and to treat my belongings with greater care. The garage was cleaned and organized, and my things were moved back inside the house. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a start. This experience left a lasting impact on me. It deepened my understanding of family dynamics and the importance of respect and boundaries. It taught me that even in the closest families, conflicts can arise, but with patience and communication, they can be resolved. Most importantly, it reminded me that my voice matters, and that standing up for myself is not selfish, it's necessary. If you're facing similar challenges in your family, know that your feelings are valid. It's okay to ask for respect and to set boundaries. Family is about love, but it's also about honoring each other's dignity. Don't be afraid to speak up, to seek support, and to work towards solutions that bring peace and understanding. Our story is still unfolding, and I hope that by sharing it, I can help others navigate their own family struggles. Because at the end of the day, family is what we make of it through love, respect, and the willingness to grow together. The atmosphere in the house grew thick with tension, a heavy cloud that seemed to settle over every room and linger in every corner. What had once been a warm, welcoming home filled with laughter and easy conversation had transformed into a place where silence spoke louder than words, and every interaction felt like walking on eggshells. The energy was different, strained, fragile, and charged with unspoken frustrations that simmered just beneath the surface, ready to boil over at the slightest provocation. Lisa, my daughter, found herself caught in the middle of this growing storm. She was torn between her husband Mark, her father between the man she had chosen to build a life with, and the family she had grown up with and loved deeply. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the way she tried to balance her loyalty to both sides, but the strain was evident. She was stretched thin, trying to keep the peace while managing her own feelings of hurt and confusion. It was a burden no one should have to carry, and yet she bore it with quiet strength. For me, the sense of betrayal was overwhelming. Now, I had always believed that family meant respect, support, and understanding. I'd given so much to this family time. Love, guidance. Yet, I felt sidelined, dismissed, and disrespected. Mark's decision to throw my belongings into the garage without consulting me was not just a physical act. It was a symbolic one. It was a message that my place in the family was no longer secure, that my feelings and rights were secondary to his convenience. That realization cut deep, and it was hard to hide the hurt beneath a calm exterior. Mark's father, the newest member of our household, seemed oblivious to the chaos his arrival had caused. He moved through the house with an air of entitlement. Unaware or indifferent to the tension that his presence stirred, his demands and criticisms added fuel to the fire, making it clear that he expected to be accommodated without question. It was as if the house had shifted beneath our feet, and we were all struggling to find solid ground again. Every conversation in the house became a negotiation, delicate dance of words where everyone was trying to avoid conflict but unable to escape it. Simple decisions, what to eat for dinner, who would do the chores, how to arrange the living space, became battlegrounds. Voices were lowered, but the sharpness of frustration and resentment was unmistakable. The warmth that once defined our family interactions was replaced by a cold formality, a sense of obligation rather than genuine connection. Meals, which had always been a time for gathering and sharing, turned into silent battles. The clinking of cutlery and the rustling of napkins filled the spaces where laughter and conversation used to be. Eyes often avoided meeting, and smiles were forced or absent altogether. The table, once a symbol of unity, now felt like a dividing line, separating us rather than bringing us together. I missed the days when we could sit down and simply enjoy each other's company without tension hanging over us like a dark cloud. I tried to keep my cool, to maintain a sense of calm and reason despite the turmoil inside me. Beneath the surface, I was boiling with anger and frustration. It was difficult to reconcile the man I wanted to be the patient. Understanding father-in-law with the emotions that threatened to overwhelm me, I felt powerless at times, unsure of how to assert myself without causing further division. The weight of the situation pressed down on me, making it hard to breathe, let alone find a way forward. Lisa, ever the peacemaker, pleaded for peace. She begged us to put aside our differences for the sake of the family, for the sake of the children, and for the love that had once bound us together. Her voice was filled with desperation and hope, a reminder of what we were fighting to preserve. But despite her efforts, I couldn't ignore how Mark had treated me. It wasn't just about the stuff in the garage. It was about boundaries being crossed and respect being ignored. It was about the fundamental way we treat those we claim to love. The family I loved was fracturing before my eyes. The bonds that had held us together were stretched thin, threatened by misunderstandings, unmet expectations, and unspoken grievances. I watched as the people I cared about most drifted apart, caught in a web of hurt and resentment that seemed impossible to untangle. It was heartbreaking to witness. It left me feeling isolated and uncertain about the future. I began to question how we had arrived at this point. Was it a failure of communication, a lack of empathy, or simply the inevitable result of too many changes too quickly? I realized that living together as an extended family brought challenges none of us had fully anticipated. The dynamics were complex, and the needs and desires of each person had to be balanced carefully. But balance was elusive, and the scales seemed tipped against harmony in the quiet moments. I reflected on my own role in the unfolding drama. Had I been too passive? Had I failed to set clear boundaries or speak up sooner? These questions haunted me, adding to the weight of guilt and frustration I already carried. I wanted to be the pillar of strength for my family, but I also needed to protect my own dignity and well-being. Despite the difficulties, I held on to hope. I believed that families could heal, that wounds could be mended with time, effort, and understanding. I knew that forgiveness and reconciliation were possible, but they required honesty and willingness from everyone involved. It was clear that we needed to have open conversations, to listen without judgment, and to acknowledge the pain we were all feeling. I also recognized the importance of empathy, trying to see the situation from Mark's perspective. The pressures he faced with his father's arrival, and the challenges Lisa endured as she navigated her roles as wife, mother, and daughter. Family is rarely simple, and the path to peace is often winding and difficult as the days passed. I made a conscious effort to reach out, to bridge the gaps that had formed. I sought moments of connection, small gestures of kindness, and opportunities. To rebuild trust wasn't easy, and progress was slow, but every step forward was a victory. I also learned the value of patience. Healing doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes the hardest part is simply holding on to hope when things seem darkest. I reminded myself that families are resilient, capable of growth and change even after the deepest fractures. Through this experience, I came to appreciate the complexity of family life, the joys and the struggles, the love and the conflicts. I understood that respect is not just about grand gestures, but about everyday actions and attitudes. It's about listening, valuing each other's feelings, and honoring the shared history that binds us. I hope that by sharing this story, others who face similar challenges will find comfort and encouragement. Family conflicts can be painful and isolating, but they don't have to be permanent. With effort, communication, and respect, healing is possible. If you're going through something like this, know that your feelings are valid. It's okay to feel hurt, frustrated, or confused. It's okay to ask for help and to set boundaries that protect your well-being. And it's okay to hope for a better future. Thank you for listening to our story. If it resonates with you, please share your own experiences in the comments. Together, we can support each other and build stronger, more loving families.